If you remember the last time we had talked about talent retention, you can understand that talent engagement and employee engagement and employee retention is one of the most important things for every organization today. Because to compete with the existing scenario in the environment, people require the human resource or the human capital. However, from that point of view, talent retention was very important. And for talent retention, talent engagement is very important. That people should feel that they're working in the organization which is taking care of them, and the environment is suitable to them. It gives growth to their career. And all these things are very important. So for an organization, employee retention was important. And I've talked about that in my last session. If anybody has got any question, I don't know, there is only one person. If there is any question, you can ask. Otherwise, I'll go ahead. Um I think I can only talk to Saurabh. Is there any question for the last session, Saurabh?
No, sir, not at the moment. Everything was clear. Thank you.
Okay, that's okay. So then I'll start with my presentation for the day. Uh, After talent retention, one important thing still is left, that is our succession planning. I mean, every organization has to think about how they are going to manage for the succession of people. That succession takes place because of the retirement of people, because people leave the organization, and for the better opportunities in life. But organization cannot stop. It has to continuously go, it should continuously perform its actions, and therefore the talented people are required to be available at every point of time. The right person at the right time, as we say, should be available at every point of time. And therefore every organization has to make their planning according to that. So there should not have any dearth of people whenever it's required. And from that point of view, succession planning is an important aspect for every organization. They have to look for the future things, what's going to happen. Either they may, the people who are leaving the organization because of the resignation, or because of the retirement, or even for the growth of the organization. If they're going to diversify, they have to increase that going to increase their area of operation, then different kinds of people will be required. And it's not only the head count that is important. The people will be required of requisite qualification, not only qualification, but the requisite experience and skill. Over a period of time, people are developed in the organization through the process of training and development. And so these people should be available wherever and whenever it's required. So it requires a meticulous planning, so that at every point of time, the people are available without any difficulty. The performance of the organization should not stop at any point of time. And from that point of view, succession planning is very important for any organization. You'll start with that succession planning, that uh, what is succession management, what are the importance of that, what is the process of succession management. We'll be talking about that. So now let us show you the presentation for the day. Well, succession planning. So as I told you, succession is a process. Every organization has to plan for the people who are going to leave the organization, how to fill up the vacancies, fill up the positions, and not with only head count, but with the experience and the people who are capable enough to handle those works. So the succession management, what is that succession management? If I just, there is a definition of it. It is the process of ensuring that pools of skilled employees are trained and available to meet the strategic objectives of the organization. Everywhere where you talk about, whether you talk about talent management or you may talk about succession planning, it is connected to the strategic objectives of the organization. The strategic objectives are the objectives of the organization, how they are going to uh, work in the environment, how they're going to face the challenges, so how they can really utilize the human resource towards the development and progress of the organization, so that there are skilled employees are required as and when it is required. And they, for that purpose, organizations train their people, develop their people, so that they are always at every point of time they're available. Succession management is a process. It's a process of meticulously thinking about this process and procedure, how to manage it. It's a tool to identify employees who have the potential to assume key positions. As you understand, when the people who leave the organization, at every level, it's possible at every level, at the lower level, at the middle level, or the top level management, there are people who live. And those key positions are to be, uh, are to be filled up by the people. And for that, we should have a line of potential people, the skilled people already developed within the organization, so that they can remain prepared for the future, exigencies, wherever it's required, they can be put. There should not have any moment in the life of an organization that there is a requirement of people, particular kind of uh, skill and the capacities, the potential that's not available, and that's going to really, uh, affect the performance of the organization. And therefore, succession management is a process by which you ensure that yes, right people at the right time is always available. Wherever there is any people are leaving the organization, there are people available who is going to fill up that position. So when you see that, when you understand this point of view, so there are various points which are important to discuss, that the importance of succession management. We can look at it from different perspectives and different points of view. So the first few points here, the importance of succession management are ensuring continuity in leadership by developing the next generation of leaders. Organization cannot survive without leaders. Leaders are the people who motivate the people down below to work, to function towards achievement of the goals of the organization. And so therefore there is a requirement of leader, and those leaders should be available at every point of time. So there should have continuity of availability of the leaders in the organization, and that's possible only when you continuously develop people towards those, the capabilities of being a leader, toward the achieving those leadership skills in the organization. So succession management ensures that leaders are available at every point of time whenever required. It increases the talent pool of promotable employees and provide increased opportunities for high potential workers. So it increases the talent pool of promotable employees. The employees are likely to be promoted, who are capable enough to be promoted, in the sense that it is not merely by promoting a people you can develop a person, right? That's definitely an incentive, or that's a motivation, but we require people who are competent enough to get promoted and handle a position, a role, a responsibility, so that they can really contribute to the organizational growth and development. So it helps in succession management. We prepare people. The organizations prepare people who are, at any point of time, if required, they can be promoted, and they can handle the situation wherever they're placed. And it also provides opportunities for high potential workers. When the high potential workers there in the organization, and it is identified, these people are identified, and when they're identified, the necessary growth and development, the training and everything is given to them, so that since he is a potentially potentially good worker, we can develop them as per the necessity or the requirement of the organization. So there is always a process of developing people, and people get an opportunity to get developed, and at the same time, that's going to help the organization to get people whenever it's required. It also identifies replacement needs for targeting necessary training, employee education, and employee development. I mean, whenever there is a replacement is required, so we can target such people who has got the potential, who give them the necessary training, we give them the education, we develop them so that they become an asset to the organization, and they can be used in the organization whenever and wherever it's required. So therefore, it ensures continuity of leadership, availability of the leaders in the organization. It increases the talent pool in the organization uh, for the high potential workers. It also gives necessary training and development and education to the people, so that they become prepared for the next requirement whenever it's coming in the life of an organization. Next points are, it contributes to the implementing the organization's strategic business plans. Now, you can understand every organization has got a strategic business plan. I mean, how they are going to really survive in the in the environment, how they're going to grow, and how they're going to excel. Now, if and it always depends upon, as you understand, on the human capital. If the human capital is available in the organization, and not only available, it's available whenever it's required, without interrupting the process of the development of the process of performance of the organization. So whenever there is a succession management is in force in any organization, it will always create such people, a pool of such people available in the organization. So it contributes towards that, which helps the organization to maintain its strategic business plan wherever and however it's required. It helps individuals realize the career plans with the organization. As you understand, in any organization, no organization can survive if the organization only is concerned about its own development or own objectives. Every organization has to think about the development and the growth of the individuals also. Whenever the growth of an individual in the organization and the growth of the organization coincides with each other, the organization will develop. They are the two wings of the whole process. And since whenever there is a succession management policies in force in any organization, it takes care of developing people so that they can be utilized wherever it's required. But in that process, people are also get the growth and development. It helps them to grow in their career, and they can fulfill their career plans. And therefore, it's a very important tool by which individuals can realize their career potential or the career plan. It encourages the advancement of diverse groups. It encourages people to grow, to advance of different kinds of people in the organization at different levels. The people are developed, and since there is a succession planning, people are given training and development that gives an encouragement to the people, and they advance in the organization as well as contribute to the organization. It improves employees' ability to respond to changing environmental demands. The organizations are existing in a very dynamic environment. Things in the external environment is changing every now and then. In comparison to the earlier period of, say, about 30 years back, 20, 40 years back, things are more not that dynamic. But today, the environment is highly dynamic, and the requirements, the expectations of the environment from the organization is changing very, very fast. And it's important for an organization to cope up with those changes. There are various external factors which are affecting the organization's performance. And if the organization cannot come up to those expectations, they cannot equate to those demands or the threats in the environment, the organization cannot survive. But if this is possible, this is required to be done, the only way out is to develop people within the organization. If the people can be developed, they can respond to the change environmental demands. They can adapt to the environmental requirement. And today, it is not only adaptation to the external environment that is important. So there are two ways of looking at it. One is adapting to the changing environment means people are capable enough to do whatever their competitors and in the environment is doing. They are capable enough to do that. But only by doing that, no organization can excel. And when you talk of excelling and being excellent in the existence, then there is a requirement of, apart from being adaptive, today the people has to become more proactive, has to look into what's going to happen tomorrow. And the organization has to think what is going to happen tomorrow. And if what's going to happen tomorrow is clear to us, whether our people are ready enough, competent enough to meet up those change environment of tomorrow. So there remains to be a requirement of to become more proactive. But for being proactive, the outlook or the attitude of the people needs to be changed. They has to become proactive thinkers, innovative thinkers today. And from that point of view, it is that succession planning, when they give training and development to the people, they make them ready for tomorrow. So that's how it improves the employee's ability to respond to the changing environmental demands, and succession management definitely helps in that process or in that regard. Well, the next few points are it improves employee morale. Well, it definitely improves employee morale, because when the consideration for developing morale is that when people think that the organization is thinking about them, organization is responding to their requirement, organizations are responding to their career needs, the morale of the employee also develops. And since organization requires to have succession planning, they take care of the people, develop people, give the necessary development and training, and thereby it improves employee morale to a large extent. It copes with the effects of voluntary separation programs. Now, there may be people who are retiring. There may be people who want to willingly leave the organization voluntarily. And whenever there is a voluntary separation in the organization, there is a void. There's a requirement of people of similar capabilities and potential. Career management takes care of these things. It takes care of all the eventualities that may happen. So there is always people are ready to accept those voids and fill up those voids. So it can cope up with the effect of voluntary separation of people who wants to leave the organization and leaves the organization actually. It decides which workers can be terminated without damage to the organization, right? It can decide if the workers are terminated from the organization, right? Now we require, organization requires talented people, organization requires experienced people, organization requires competent people. So if there is availability of competent people in the organization, taking decision and terminating any person is not a difficult issue. But otherwise, it would have been a very difficult process, because you know that you become vulnerable to that. There is nobody available after if you can terminate this person. So there is a possibility that one can take a decision because there is availability of people, and in it's not desired, but if at all at any point of time it's required to take out some people, separate some people from the organization, that's possible to be done. It reduces headcount to essential workers only. As I told you earlier in the beginning, that we require people in the organization, but that's not merely the headcount. We require people, organization requires people who are competent enough, who are capable enough, who are experienced enough to take a particular role or responsibility. So since succession management not only takes about the headcounts, it takes into account developing people who can take those responsibilities, those specific responsibilities with specific talent and skill. So it reduces the headcount, and it only takes into account essential workers who are really required for the organization. So in that way, it takes care of the essential workers only rather than the headcount. It copes with the effects of downsizing. Downsizing the organization, yes, it may be required to downsize the people, but when you say that we are downsizing people means we require people to be taken out of the organization. But then if you take out somebody, we require the people at a cheaper, I mean, a cheaper, what do you call, price, and who can really take over those positions, right? And so it can cope with the effects of downsizing because all kinds of people are available to the organization. There may be a person who is fat enough to, to take care of by the organization, and it can be reduced, and other people can take that place. Well, this is some of the importance of succession management, which has to be borne in the mind in any organization. Now, let us go into the process of what is the evolution of succession management, how it takes into account how it grows. See, from that point of view, let's first understand the replacement planning has evolved into succession management. Earlier there was only replacement policy, replacement planning by the human resource management departments. There is only whenever there is any people and not there, then they search for a person and replace, or you terminate some people who are in that place, somebody is replaced, right? Now the focus is broadened. Focus is not only find out a person whenever there is a vacancy. Focus is already developing people for those forthcoming possibilities of people leaving the organization. The focus is more broadened. It is not only merely the replacing people, it is also developing the people. It is also getting people who are competent enough to fill up a position. Second, it has been evolved in the sense that expanding the time horizon. Now, earlier it was on a very short-term kind of thing. Then people used to think whenever there is only requirement, and people start searching for people. But today, the time horizon has changed. We think about for the next months or years, so that there should not have any point where there is a dearth of people. There is non-availability of people in the organization. So horizon has increased, and not only so, how the organization is going to behave, the organization, what kind of challenges the organization is going to face in the coming time, and we're taking an estimation of that, making a strategy about that. So what kind of people will be required in future, so we take care of those aspects also right from now. It by creating a talent pool of replacement. So earlier, since it was only searching for people whenever it's required. Now we create a talent pool. The people are already kept in the pool, and there is a proactive thinking that whenever there is a requirement, the people should be available. So creating the talent pool of replacement is also a change, evolved position in succession management. It improves the evolution system. I mean that has improved the evolution system. The evolution of succession planning has really contributed to the organization, and it changes thinking. So let's look into the same thing here. In an what is the focus? In the evolution of succession management, focus is updated table of employee who might be nominated if needs arise. So there is a people are already available who can be nominated for the place, who can be placed in a position whenever there is a requirement. Focus on the high potential candidate. It's not just filling up or the head count, as I told you earlier. The focus is on the high potential candidate who can really make justice to the position and the responsibility. It gives a stable future and long-term goal. So there is no I'm in hurry for getting a person whenever there is any requirement. There is already a proactive thinking, and there is already a thought which is going on. So the future is stable. Whenever there is a requirement that can be fulfilled, that can be filled up, and so it takes into account the long-term goal of the organization. The time horizon. The time horizon is earlier traditionally it was short term. I mean, whenever it's required, one used to try to get people. But today it's a long term. It focuses on future. If there is a long term, uh, I mean, focus, and it take into account the future requirement. There is a talent pool in the today's succession management. There is a pool of talents, the flexible job skills and competencies. I mean, people are developed and for taking different kinds of assignments and different kinds of role. And according to that, the competencies are developed within them. They becomes a corporate resource, the resource for any requirement. It becomes a human capital. And in that process, both the we can look at the internal and external candidates. Today, we're not only taking care of the internal people, we are also taking care of the external candidates. I mean, there is a mix of two kinds of things, so that there's a blend of different ideas and different uh, experiences of people from inside as well as from outside. So the succession management has evolved over a period of time, and that has really changed the landscape of succession management or the development of the organization. Well, if you look at the same way here, what is the difference between succession and replacement? So earlier it was more of a replacement process, but today it's a succession process. So if you look into this, the environmental factors earlier in replacement planning was more stable because the environment was not changing very fast. And we will look into a few decades back, other things are not changing fast, but today it's highly dynamic. So if there is a highly dynamic situation, the succession management has to be done also more dynamically. The succession management is required now. No replacement is not the question of replacement management. The focus in replacement planning is job. I mean, if there is a job for which there is a vacancy that has to be filled up, there's no other thought. But today we think of it as a strategy because it's a strategy for the organizational objectives. If there is the dart the people, competent people, that is going to affect the organizational performance. So it is now there is a strategy. It has been made as a strategy. The succession management is a strategy rather than merely replacement of people. The time frame earlier, maybe it would have been confined within a period of 6 to 12 months. That the requirement of people in this few 6 months or 7 months or 8 months, what will be the requirement? But today it can look and to go beyond 2+ years. What's going to happen tomorrow. And then every organization today has got a more futuristic understanding of what's going to happen in the organization, not only because of the environmental changes, but also because of the strategic decisions, new growth, diversification, and various other kinds of things. And so the time frame is extended. The selection criteria earlier maybe it was only the job experience, but today we call it as competencies. The competence is more important rather than the job experience only. So they should be competent enough to handle various kinds of things. That has to be taken into account in today's environment. Appraiser, earlier it was more or less the immediate manager, but today it's 360-degree feedback, by which you can really understand the importance of a person, the potential of a person, the popularity of the person, the leadership of the person. I mean, by 360-degree feedback, where you can take the feedback from the subordinates, the seniors, and the peers, and everyone. So everyone can give an idea about the person. It is not merely confined to the subjective understanding, subjective decision of the immediate manager. The selection process earlier is more or less internal, but today it is internal as well as external. So whenever there is a requirement of a very specific kind of people for the development, the growth of the organization, and the performance, to increase the performance of the organization, one can look into the not only the internal but the external people also. The successes in replacement planning are the particular people who are identified even from the right from the beginning, who are studied individuals. But today it's not so. There is a talent pool, and the talent tool is there, and we can really get it. Anybody from this talent pool can be used as a to succeed the position. The development in replacement was limited, only confined with 1% or 2% who are the in the good books of the top management. But today it's more flexible, it's more multiple. There is a number of people who are developed and kept in the pool. So it's flexible, it's multiple. Flexible in the sense the people may get development in different areas. So if required, they can be used at different areas of the functions. And as well as it is multiple, number of people are more. So there is an evolution in the succession management also. Now look at that succession management process. The succession management process, number one, succession management, as I told you earlier, it has to align its plans with a strategy of the organization. All right. Its plans are derived and developed from the strategy of the organization. Today, every department has to be connected and aligned with the strategy of the organization, right? So, in the number one, it is to align the plans with the strategy, and then they should go in for identifying the skill and competencies which are required today and tomorrow, not only for 6 months or down the line, maybe for 2 years. Of course, keeping in view the organization strategy, what the organization is going to do, where the organization wants to reach there, what kind of excellence the organization wants to achieve over a period of time, and that will determine what kind of people are required. So identification of skills and competencies are done on the basis of that. So aligning with the strategy of the organization. Number three, it identifies high potential employees, right? So there, the question of not feeling headhunting, I mean, as we're talking about the head counting, but we require high potential employees, because at the end of the day, we are more concerned with the performance of the organization, which is connected to the business objective or the strategic objectives of the organization. So identification of high potential employees starts taking place internally and externally. And the fourth stage is providing developmental opportunities and experiences. We get a raw material as a talented person or the potential person in the organization, but the organization has to reshape them as per the requirement of the organization. So there is a process of developing people by giving them different kinds of experience or on the job training or experiences, so that people can be developed over the period of time. They become more relevant to the organization's changing environment. So providing developmental opportunities and experience is an immensely important thing for them. And the fifth is the monitoring that succession management. The whole process needs to be monitored, right? It is a continuous process which cannot be stopped. Right? And as it has to become sensitive to the environmental changes, it has to become sensitive to the business strategy of the organization. Every point of time, things are changing, and accordingly, the fine tuning of the entire process has to be taken into account. So, align plans with strategy, identify the skills and competencies, identify high potential employees, and provide developmental opportunities and experience, and ultimately monitor the succession management. And that is the process by the succession manager takes care of. So far what we have discussed is what is succession planning. It's a process of developing a pool of talent who can be used for the requirement of the organization to meet the strategic objectives of the organization. There are various importance of succession management that we have discussed, and the succession management is an evolved process. That so-called traditional way of engaging people, getting people from outside and taking them in the organization, and today's succession management to different things have evolved. So how the things have evolved that we've seen. And also we have seen what is that succession management process. In a nutshell, what is that process? Now, I would like that if you have got any question till this time, you will ask me, and I'll be happy to answer to your questions. Yeah, anybody has got anything to ask? Any question? Yes, hello. Are you with me? Mr. Bagai, Mr. Krishan Kant, who else is there? Hello, hello. Sound getting bad. Hello, hello. Anybody there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
So no question at the moment. Sorry,
yeah.
my mic was on mute.
Thank
Anybody?
you, sir. Hello.
Hello. Yes. Please come out. Hello. Hello. It seems there's some issue with the sound. Nobody's replying. Hello. Hello. Hello, Mr. Agrawal. Everything is all right?
Hello.
Yeah.
Sir.
Huh. Where again sound is gone.
Go ahead, sir.
Should I go ahead?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So there is no question, so I'm going ahead of it. Well, now let me talk about the first point, that is aligning succession management plans with strategy. Aligning succession management plans with strategy. As you understand, that every organization has got its own strategy, and as I told you earlier, the succession management plan has to align with the strategy of the organization. And every organization, they will start with a business plan. It's not possible that organization doesn't have any business plan. If it is so, then the organization is not surviving at all. It's not existing. So every organization must start with the business plan. It has to look into its short-term plans and its long-term plans. And according to that, not only the plan, it has to make its own strategy. The strategies are more important than making plans. And the strategy and plans, they are two different things. As you know that strategies are the long-term plans, where we take into account every environmental factor, every contingencies and exigencies in the environment, and if some situation comes, how we are going to face it. Now, for that process, what the organization does, it scans the environment. It looks into the environment to find out different challenges. It makes its own SWOT analysis. It finds out, make an estimation of its own strengths, weaknesses, threats, and opportunities available in the environment. It makes a scanning of that. There it discovers its own strengths and finds out what are weaknesses which should be removed. It will also make a planning that how to use the opportunities, which is the work area for the organization, the opportunities that to be made. And it has to find out what are the threats and how they're going to overcome the threats in the organization. So the managers that try to predict where the organization will be in 3 to 5 to 10 years. So today's most important, the technicality of today's strategic plan is that one cannot think about the short-term plan only. That plan is already made. Now, it's important that one has to think of what's going to happen down the line within maybe 5 to 10 years. And if it is we're talking about 5 to 10 years, not only organization has to think about what they're going to do, but accordingly it has to look into the requirement of its resources. And in that process of requirement of resources, the most important resource is the human capital. Without the human capital, nothing can be achieved. So if there is a big dream of a big strategy of achieving something great in the coming years, the organization has to side by side alongside it has to think about how and from where we are going to get people who are competent enough to handle the situation. Not only that, it has to look into this thing that when the people leaves the organization, and then how it is going to fill up that position, fill up that void from within this organization. So the organization strategy as well as the succession management, they have to grow, they have to go hand in hand together. So one has to align the succession management plans with the strategy, and that's very important. The next point is identifying the skill and competencies needed. We have already talked about these things in the talent management, identifying the skills and competencies that are needed. Organization has to make a list of the skills that is required for different positions and different responsibilities and roles. And it will also find out that for that particular position, what are the competencies needed. So by the process of competency mapping, they have to find out what are the needs that is required. So the one approach is the job-based approach that for a particular job, what kind of skill and experience is required. So one can think about that, the identification of the people. The other thing is what are the competencies needed in a particular position. So depending on the potential within people, the competency mapping can be done. And through that process also, the skills can be identified. And so both things have to be taken into account, and the organization has to make its own list and identify the process. Job-based and competency-based approach. Job-based and competency-based approach. Job-based approach that focuses on certain things, certain set of things. Number one, it focuses on duties. It focuses on the skills. Duties means it focuses on the duties handled by a person over a period of time, right? And what are the skills required for that position and how he was competent in discharging those skills. What is his job experience? You can understand it. Only merely job experience is not something which is tangible to be thought about. Experience is only length of time, but over that period, whether he has got real experiences being involved in the work, how he has done from his performance, it can be seen. What responsibilities that person may have handled. That's also one way of understanding the capability of the person. So if one can look into the duties handled, the skills required, the job experience, and the responsibilities taken up by an individual in a particular job, one can very well understand the competence of the person, or the identification of the skill is possible to be done. Not adequate since job change rapidly. So when you say that a skill of a person, when you talk about the job experience of a person, when you talk about the responsibilities handled by a person, well, these are very short-term things. The things may change, environment may change, and maybe tomorrow the entire job experience may become obsolete. The skills that are being handled to entirely changes. Say tomorrow, some IT-enabled things come into the market. The people who are doing manually or mechanically, that may have to change to the IT base. So all the experience, as the entire experience goes west, and it's gone. So today you require people who have got the capacity, the potential to change over from one thing to the new thing. So it's now the only job-based approach, or the skills and experience-based approach, is not adequate, because environment is changing very rapidly. There is a large possibility of any experience or any skill get, totally redundant. So the next approach is the competency-based approach, where you look at the competence of a person. And when a person is competent, he'll be flexible. He can adapt to every environment, of the changed environment, and that's what is required today. It focuses on measurable attributes that differentiate successful employees from those who are not. The attributes that are required within a person, if that is available, he can be used at different positions, because he has got a different attitude kind of thing. He has got different kinds of competence which can enable him to take up any kind of responsibility, any kind of role, any kind of job requirement. So therefore, it's important to see from the competency-based approach. Number one. Number two, it requires hard and soft skills. Hard skills are required, and only hard skill is not going to be sufficient. The soft skills are required. In the same issue, for the enough competence, enough intelligence, enough innovative thinking, innovative way of thinking, who can really adjust himself to the various changing environment. That is more important today, rather than being only looking at the hard skill, the kind of experience one may have got. It produces more flexible individuals. The competency based people, those who have got competence, they're more flexible because of their competence and particular presence of particular certain attributes, they can be used at different positions. So that's more flexible. So rather than looking at the job-based approach, which is more or less a thing of the past in the traditional way of thinking, today in an environment is changing, and today it's more after the evolution, the things have changed now. It's more competency-based approach has to be accepted by the organizations. So that is more relevant. The competencies can be divided into various categories, and there are three different kinds of competency. Number one is core competence. For at the minimum level of requirement are expected from a person in a particular job. And that is core competence, without which he cannot at all function there. But then that is the baseline. That is the minimum expected level of competency from a person. But there may be certain specific competencies which can augment that process, which can really make them more better in that position. Whereas the core competence can be developed over a period of getting more experience in the job, right? But the specific competencies, it can be evolved, can be attained by specific efforts and specific habits of people with a specific attitude, as well as there are various the efforts being put by those people specifically. So there is a person who knows the work because he has done the work, has got the experience, but then there is a person who was interested to develop certain capabilities specifically. It is more desirable. That not only shows the experience of the person, his suitability of the job, it also shows the attitude of the person who wanted to develop himself very specifically in a particular position. That is a better competence, that's a better competence. And the third, out of all these three things, whenever there is a core competence, which is the minimum required competence, and the second is there is some specific competence developed by an individual by his own efforts and change in attitude, and the third is a specific talent which is not available everywhere. The unique talent, distinct competency within a person, whether it is developed or it is by birth, and that's a specific competence available within a person, and that becomes it's an additional factor, right? So whereas we start from the core competence, that are the basic requirement, but if you can get people, the organization can get people with specific competences, and at the top of that, unique competencies, then that's more desirable. So well, look for the competencies. All these three factors are to be taken into account, are to be compared with each other, and accordingly, the people or competent people are to be identified. The step 3 is identify the high potential employees. Now, when you look at the competencies, then we have to identify the high potential employees. As I already told, that we require people of high potential, because high potential people are going to give high contributions to the organization. Organizations use several approaches to identify managerial talent, as we have already talked about. There are various approaches through which we can use those talents in the organization. It may be, developing, when we're talking about developing the high potential employees, that is by temporary replacements. By replacing a person temporarily from one work to the other work, we can increase the domain of understanding of that person. And you can also find out the suitability of that person in the new job. There's replacement charts. I mean, the kind of changing the jobs, replacing the people at different places, and not only that, when there is a replacement chart, when there is a possibility of replacing, possibility, future need for replacing a person, you can find out what kind of potential is required. So that kind of high potential employees are developed or identified in the organization beforehand. There may be requirement of strategic replacement. When you find a person is competent enough and highly compatible and suitable for a particular position where he can really contribute to the organizational growth, then there is a strategic replacement is also required to happen, and that will identify high potential employees, and the people can be placed in that position. Talent management culture, the entire thing that you have discussed in talent management sessions, there should have a talent management culture, means we require to have talented people, competent people who are really going to contribute to the performance of the organization. Wherever there is a gap, that gap has to be fulfilled by the talented people. And from that point of view, organization need to identify the high potential employees, high potential people who can contribute to the growth and development and sustenance of the organization. Well, the next point, let us see, in the step forward, that providing developmental opportunities and experience. Now, once that high potential employees are identified, next important thing, as we have seen in the talent management also, give the developmental opportunities and experience to the people. It's relevant here to refer to Peter Drucker, the father of management, is that he said that most managers are made, not born. According to Peter Drucker, managers are made, not born. It's correct from the point of view that even though somebody may have the specific potential or talent to become a manager, but then we have to polish it, develop it, grow it, stimulate it to make them the real managers in the real life. So managers are made, not born. And when you say that managers are made, not born, then there is a direct requirement of developing people. How can you develop people? The development is possible when you allow the persons to have those opportunities where they can really get an experience. Exposure is the only important thing by which an individual can be developed. It's not only merely thinking of the theoretical aspects of life cannot give a growth to a person. He has to be exposed to different situations, and that experience is a real good master, where the experience is a real good teacher, which can really, change a person to a more suitable person for the organization and also for his own life and career. So there has to be systematic work on the supply, the development, and skills of tomorrow's management. All the three things are very important. The first thing is it has to go very systematically. Number one, they should have supply of people, and there lies the most important thing: the identification of talented people, of the high-skilled people, and that has to be ensured. The supply has to be ensured that there is availability of adequate people who are in that area. And not only that, they are to be developed, making suitable the organizational requirement to the organizational strategy. Developing people, not only developing people to the skills of tomorrow's management. So there is an added responsibility. One has to look for and think about what are the tomorrow's skills required in the organization, right? The tomorrow's management skills are to be developed right from today, so that when the tomorrow comes, the people are already ready to cater to that needs. So there are three different steps. Number one, the availability of people. So you have to identify people and search for the people. So there is availability of supply of people, and then the developing them, and developing them, for that one has to make a plan and make a strategy and think about tomorrow's requirement. One is to be aware of what is the tomorrow's possible requirements. And from that point of view, tomorrow's possible requirement has to be taken into account, and then accordingly they have to be developed, right? So developing, supplying people, supply of people, development people, and tomorrow's management, all the three things should go hand in hand. It cannot be left to chance, right? In the earlier days, it was more or less left to chance. Whenever there is a need for a person, there is a high, alert, and people are searched for that from different positions. What to talk of thinking about tomorrow's required changes, what may happen. People are more or less confined within a very short term without thinking about the long term requirements, the consequences of tomorrow, right? And therefore, providing developmental opportunities and experience is a highly required thing. An organization has to be highly proactive in this area. Organization has to think about this very, very carefully. Well, the next point is there are various, this development, as you're talking about, there are various management development methods by which people can be developed. Promotion is one thing. Now, what the person gets in promotion, whenever there is a promotion, certain things will happen. Let me talk about in the next slide. Another way of developing people is the job rotation. The third is giving the specific assignment, special assignments to the person to get him developed, and as well as formal training and development. Or giving him formal training and development. So I'll talk about the first one, the promotion. It's an employee's upward advancement in the hierarchy of an organization. Now you understand, try to understand how it develops a person. The promotion gives two things, or rather it gives three things. Number one, promotion motivates a person. When a person is motivated, his attitude changes, his moral changes, he becomes more, contributes to the organization. Thereby, it satisfies one of the most important requirements in talent management, that a person is promoted. Number two, when a person is promoted, his capabilities are recognized. That also gives him motivation to the person. Number three, when a person is promoted, he gets an exposure to a different environment, different set of responsibilities, different role, different skills that is required to be developed. So he gets an exposure and chance to get an experience in that position, and that's how the people are developed, right? And the third thing is that by promoting a person, by giving them extra responsibilities, by giving a different role, people are developed. And when a person is developed, he can really adding to the needs of the organization. And the third and the fourth thing is that it's advancing the career of that person, is giving contributing to the growth of the career of the person, and that also motivates a person to contribute more toward the performance in the organization. That job rotation. Job rotation is a process for an employee's upward advancement in the hierarchy of organization is achieved by lateral as well as vertical moves. Well, a job rotation, as you understand, whenever there is a job rotation, there is enough opportunity of an individual to get different kinds of exposures, laterally as well as vertically, right? So lateral, when you get lateral replacement over a different position, different roles, so you get a more systemic understanding of the whole thing, and the person gets developed. And if a person gets developed, it becomes more suitable for the vertical growth, vertical moves. When you are laterally accomplished by getting experience of different kinds of roles and responsibilities, that's really going to contribute to the person for towards his vertical move, where he can become more more suitable and more more important to be retained there in those positions. So the job rotation is also an important factor by which one can develop a person. There is a requirement of mentors. It is required. It may be sometimes there may be requirement of mentors. A mentor is an executive in the organization, maybe the senior of a person who can coach him, advise him, and encourage him. When it creates a demonstration effect. When there is somebody who is doing the same kind of thing and who has the experience of doing the same kind of thing, and whenever there is a requirement, he can share his experiences and clear all the doubts in the minds of a person, as the person gets motivated, person understand that this is possible to be done. So by giving coaching, by getting advice from the mentors and getting encouragement from the mentors, the junior employees gets developed. They can develop themselves, and that's really a very, very important thing today. This is something which is very important in vogue in organizations. They try to make mentoring wherever it's required. Next, monitoring the succession management, and the process of management has to monitor. I think there is one point which I would like to discuss here. Yes, by giving special assignment, by giving we've seen that promotions, we've seen the job rotations, and there are special assignments that given to the people for a particular point of time, an exposure to a particular job to develop his idea or his the contours of understanding in a particular area, as well as formal training and development is a process by which the people can be developed in an organization. That is understandable. Well, the last point here is that this whole process is to be monitored. The succession management has to be monitored. Organizations or the corporations with strong succession management programs high performance. They perform better for the very simple reason that their performance is never disturbed. They've always got a pool of people who can, at the moment it is required, it's available to them. And not only that, they are not only looking at today's short-term requirement, they're also looking towards the future requirements of the organization. So they perform well in terms of the revenue growth. They perform well in terms of the profitability in the organization. They perform well, they do well in terms of market share, right? So all these things, the revenue growth, the profitability, the market share can be increased, can be developed by monitoring the succession management, by effectively implementing the process of succession management. The various HR metrics which you may find out in HR analytics can be used to help monitor succession management. So different metrics are to be seen and how those can be attained by the proper succession management process. That is also very important. So the monitoring is also required. So now we have seen the various things. Number one, we have seen that we need to align the succession management plan with the strategy of the organization. Next, you need to identify the skills and competence of different kinds of people. Uh, and that competency can be done or that can be identified by seeing the job and the skills or the competency. The competence is a more appropriate method, although the job has to be taken into account, but competence is more appropriate because by being a competent person, having the required competencies, one can be more flexible and future ready for different kinds of responsibilities to be shouldered. There are various kinds of competencies that you have seen, and then ultimately the organization has to identify the high potential employees in the organization. And you understand that it is the process, there are three steps in any organization. Number one, selecting the employees, the hiring the people, selecting the people. And the number two is acquiring the people. Number two, developing the people, right? That developing the people is very, very important, right? And that is required. So there is a need for providing developmental opportunities and experience to the people. So providing, after identification, providing developmental opportunities and experiences, giving experience to the people. And this development can be done in three processes. The management development may be done in three ways. Number one must may be promoted, and then maybe job rotation. There may be appointment of the mentors, right? And above all, this whole process has to be monitored. The succession management process has to be monitored for real growth and real contribution to the organization, development of the organization. So now we are at the end of our session. I would like that if anybody has got any question, you may please come. I'm prepared for that.
Sir, good morning, Harpreet here.
Yeah, Hardeep.
Sir, I just want to understand, like you were telling about the job rotations, about the vertical movement and the horizontal, lateral movement and the vertical movement.
Yeah.
Just want to know, like, which is better, and are they mutually exclusive or they are complementary? Like I would say, like which is better, first of all?
Which is better means you're comparing between what, lateral and vertical?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Lateral movement and the
Okay.
vertical movement.
You see that the most, what will be more available or more possible to be done is the lateral movement, Vertical movement is only sometimes, and I'm just trying to explain it to you. Lateral movements means there is job rotation. You are given different kinds of experiences, different kind of, different jobs at different points of time. And that's in many of the organizations that job rotation is done. So that one does not become confined with only one knowledge. So tomorrow, if required, they can share the experiences, share the job himself, and he get a more systemic understanding of the whole thing of any particular department, right? So lateral movement is very, very important. Now, when you talk of vertical movement, the vertical movement, you cannot just make one person promote today and then demote tomorrow. Here, the talking of the vertical movement means what? In absence of the person who is not present today, one can officiate in this position and take that responsibility for temporarily, and you can understand and feel that position. So whenever there is absence of a person who is senior to you, you get an opportunity to work in that position for some time, right? Maybe within certain limitation, but that gives an added understanding of the whole thing and how the things are working. So what will happen? The most common will be the lateral thing, right? And the vertical things will be very less. But then, if a person is highly competent, the organization can think about, at times, can think about giving him those opportunities to go into the vertical position for some time temporarily. I've seen people to officiate in a particular place in place of a senior person for some time. That is done only keeping in view the competence of the person. If the person is competent enough, then and then only he can be placed in that position. Yes, come out. Now, what else you want to understand here?
Sir, second question is, are these both the lateral and the vertical movement, they are mutually exclusive or they are interrelated?
No, they are not mutually. They are definitely they're interrelated in the sense either you will be given, sometimes you will be given lateral experiences, and when you are highly experienced, you may be thought of being utilized for vertical replacement. I try to understand. If a person he is a raw, you will not allow him to go in a vertical position. You will first develop him, giving him lateral experiences. And when you find his experience enough to handle the things, and you understand from all his activities that he is a suitable person for being giving vertical opportunities also, vertical responsibility also. You can give him some responsibility, vertical responsibility, by which he gathers more experience and understanding, rather than he gets the confidence. The promotion or the vertical replacement gives more than the job understanding. It gives more of a confidence level growth is there. So these are, I would say that both the things can go together, but once you are laterally developed, then the vertical development is, vertical replacement is required to give.
Sir, last question. Can we say this lateral movement, like if a person is like inducted into a company, so this lateral movement is good in the early part of the experience, or it is better after certain period of time after the person spent some years in a company?
Well, you see that whenever somebody joins the organization, the first and the most important requirement of the person should be acclimatized with the organization. He will first understand the culture of the organization, the process and procedure of the organization, right? So it's better not to disturb him immediately. It's better that he gets acquainted with the policies, procedures, and everything of this organization, right? So let him just work for some time and should be proficient enough, because initially he may have got all the doubts in his mind whether he is suitable for the organization or not, whether he is being able to come to the expectation of the organization or not. That stage should be over first. So whenever he works in a particular position for some time, he gains confidence, he gets acclimatized to the organizational factors, and then he gets that confidence. Then if you ask him to take another job, shift to some other job, he may readily accept it, right? So you should give some first, initially should give some time. He should not be immediately, if you start giving him immediate replacements to different jobs, it may create some kinds of dissatisfaction in his mind. That is possible when you are giving a kind of training. That's possible. What some of the organizations that do before giving him a particular placement, they're giving training. In the training, he knows that now I'm a trainee. So even if I do any mistake, doesn't matter, because if I'm learning. So So that when the training period is over, and then that in that training process, that lateral shifting may be done many ways. He can work in a particular seat for 7 days, some 10 days or 1 month, then he shift towards another position. And by that process, over a period of 6 months or 1 year, he gets acclimatized to various departments, and then his replacement is made. There it's possible. Otherwise, when you give somebody a position, let him work for some time so that he get acclimatized to that, he gets confidence to that. Yes, yes, Sandeep. Hello, hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Anything else?
No, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other question?
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah,
Uh,
please.
so just wanted to understand when you talk about succession planning, you would see this has been the culture for MNCs all across the world. However,
What? Now, once again. When you talk,
when we say about succession planning,
uh,
you would see this has been the culture for all the MNCs across the world, correct?
yeah.
However, when we talk about Indian companies, you still find succession planning is not, everybody understand the concept, but it is not being implemented properly. So, do you suggest a way, so that this kind of a culture can be developed within the organization, and everybody should take succession planning as one of the important parameter to be followed in?
There's a problem with the sound. I could listen to you partially. The later part you could not. I could not listen. Once again.
So I said, is there a way through which we can develop succession planning as a important tool in an organization? Because everybody understand what succession planning is, but when it comes to implementation, you still find Indian companies may not doing it on a practical ground. So how can one develop succession planning as a culture in the organization?
Well, that happens everywhere.
Correct.
There is a concept, there is a technology which should be applied. The first stage, people do not know about it. The next stage, people knows about it, but people are very lazy to change their ways and means. Everybody is, they want to stick to their previous things the way they're habituated. But then over a period of time, organizations understand and realize the importance. The sooner it is better. Now, why this training and all these kinds of things happen, training or new qualification, the purpose is as you are now being trained. Tomorrow you will go to that position where you have to take a decision about succession planning. So
Correct.
this training, when it goes into you, it's not out of 100 people will do that. Maybe out of you, some people will try to implement that who realizes the importance of it. And that will always happen. That will always happen. This is a process. This is a process. But it's better. The more people becomes more knowledgeable, understandable, and the more they can really use the things and imbibe the things which are important to them. So you have got a responsibility towards that. Wherever you're working, try to propagate this understanding. The succession management is one very important thing. Otherwise, whenever there is a requirement of person, you will not get it. And when you will not get it, the organization will suffer. This you understand. Now you are the tomorrow's person who is going to implement it. Are you getting my point? So
Correct.
likewise, everyone who is listening to this or who is being learning this particular things, they are the future tomorrow's people who are going to implement this thing. So this is the process how it goes. We cannot expect that 100% in every organization everyone will do it. Some people will do it, some people will not do it, some people will do it after getting a bad experience. And that's how the things go. Yeah, you get my point?
Yes, sir, I do. I do. So the point is that I think this will again gonna take some time for people to change their thought processes, and I believe to understand
Yes,
and start trusting their, the staff, that they could be a valuable resources for them to be in future.
yes. Every training, every knowledge is a process of changing their outlook, changing the
Correct.
attitude. How many
Correct.
will do, you never know. But now at least you are exposed to get some instinct, some stimulation in your mind by which you understand, realizing some in your subconscious mind. Maybe tomorrow, whenever you are in the helm of the affairs and take a decision about this, to take a decision about this, well, remember, yes, probably this should be done, this I can do. That This is a process. This is a process, right?
Sir, sorry, one more question, quick question. Sir, is there any module on succession planning when we say, or is there any model which the organization should follow? I'm sure you talked about processes, but is there any model or module which is available on succession planning when we say, like something which can be studied and implemented?
Model, although the model is very simple, it is the simple is the model of the talent management. Because the
Okay.
talent management also say the hire people, develop people, right, and keep them engaged, retain them. Here only the outlook is little different.
Okay.
That is, we are being more concerned with the future requirements. So the model is the same. Model is more or less the same. I don't think there is a very separate model is required for this. We have to follow the same. But only thing is that we have to look into the future. What will be the requirement of tomorrow? Not only in terms of head count, in terms of the skills required, depending upon the strategic objectives of the organization. Are we aware of that? Are you concerned about it? And are you taking steps towards that so that we can ensure that such people are available whenever required in future? That is the only thing which is a different, different thing, different point. So separately, there's no requirement. You can follow the talent management model.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Yeah, Mr. Agrawal, anybody else? I think you will be doing in HR analytics where there are various parameters, right? And depending on the parameters, there will be requirement of different kinds of people. And whether different kinds of people requirement is there, we have to think about the how it fits to succession management. So you have to look into the HR analytics, the different parameters of a human resource process to manage the things, to control the things. So have you done HR analytics? It's being done.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We have just started off. Anubhavali, Dr. Anubhavali.
Right.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Well, yes, can you call it a day?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then. Thank you very much for being with me. All the
Thank
best.
you, sir.
Take
Thank you.
care. See you again. See you again. Goodbye.
Bye-bye, sir.